In light of all the other things that have been going in the community, I just want to kind of bring some positivity around. And one of the interesting topics, and if you're newer to the scene, especially if you came in 2016, you may be wondering, why do people have faith in this guy named PPMD, who didn't look quite good at Battle of the Five Gods? So why is there this hype? Why is there, a lot of chatter? Why are they talking about his potential? And I did a video similar to this called History of PPMD, but I just want to really show why people get so excited over this guy. And we look at his career and look at his hallmarks. First of all, he's like this, and for a lot of people, they're excited over this guy because, first of all, he came from a region where there's really not too much talent. So he was a really self-taught type of guy, practiced with computers, theory crafted a lot with the more analytical players like Cactar, Umbrion Mao, Sleepy K, to really just like theory craft and say like, hey, like if I learn the proper fundamentals of this game, I can get good, and he did. And there were some just hallmarks to him, overall, where he was starting to get really good. And he was what makes him really special is that he was the last of the five gods to progress to god level, where we already had these powerhouses like Mango, King, Hungrybox, and Armada already established as players, and we had this player slowly rise up, well, not slowly, but rise up through the ranks, national after national, eventually until he got to the top. And when he did that, he did it in a way that defied expectations. When we saw him win at Pound 5, we thought this was Armada's tournament or Hungrybox's tournament, and lo and behold, our PPMD proves everything wrong, plays his magnificent Falco to win a really exciting set over Armada at Pound 5. And the thing that you could really say about his Falco, Hugo, made the comment, I believe, at a Kings of Cali, where he said, this guy is a textbook Falco, but I think that undersells PPMD. Like, this is a guy, you watch him, and you say, wow, those are amazing choices. He has an amazing dash dance, and all his spacing is so precise and so good. And that's something that we didn't really see from that many people back in 2010. When we watch King punish with Marthon FD on a Spacey, or Armada do his punishment games on Foxes and Falcos, it's a work of art. And you watch it unfold, and you nod your head, and you say, wow, that makes sense. That looks so nice. And it's like artwork. It's like great art. And likewise, when you watch like PPMD, like narrowly scrape with the tiniest of spaces with a back air, or just cause his opponent to just narrowly whiff with a grab or a dash attack, and you see him catch him, it's like, wow, that was like perfect spacing. And for a while, we thought like this guy was the model. And even to this day, when you watch his Falco play against Hungrybox, you watch him play against Peach, this guy has the best Falco to this day, in my opinion, against floaties, in just terms of neutral game, of being able to get that little hit and then run away and really just push the limits of what he can do and what he cannot do. Of course, haven't really seen that kind of level of play from him, whether it's his personal issues or maybe other people getting better. But when you really watch those old videos of PPMD versus Armada or versus Hungrybox, those were just magnificent things to watch, and you can learn so much from those videos of just like how precise his spacing is, of how he utilizes the dash, how he pays attention to his opponent's dashes, and just narrowly just boxes in and causes whiff punishes and just like messes people's spacing up. He's probably one of the first people to really implement like the tightest of like whiff punish spacings, where he's like able to just hit you right after you throw out a hitbox, he's throwing one right away and just hitting you right after it. And he's a guy that just like kind of risen up through the ranks. We saw him, at one point say like, wow, this guy might be a favorite against King at Revival of Melee 3, where people were thinking, well, like, how does King lose his spacies? He's a monster at it. This is a guy that's had that reputation for a while, and aside from maybe Mango, like Mango's Falco at the time, we really didn't think another spacey was going to beat King's Marth and Sheik that were just so good. And he proved this wrong. And then later on, we thought, well, Mango's really good at the Falco Ditto. And during this time, Mango's kind of fooling around with Falcon and Mario, in his Scorpion Master days. But he forced Mango to switch off those characters and play Falco. And despite that, PPMD was able to get the best of Mango in a matchup that Mango took a lot of pride in back in the day. At Kings of Cali, at Winter Game Fest, PPMD came up on top. with just such a clean, consistent play style. I think what really highlights PPMD's play is more his latter half of his career up to this point. And one of the biggest things was how dominant Mutaking was in the Marth matchup, in the Marth Ditto. This is a guy that, to this day, he does not lose to any other Marth, and we thought it was actually impossible for anyone to take on Mutaking's Marth, especially on FD, his Pride and Joy stage. Like, if you really watch the old videos of Mutaking playing the earlier generations of Marth Dittos, he would dominate Ken, dominate Az, and just look like he would run circles around them. And when we see PPMD come in at a Xanadu, and I believe at a small South tournament, we see PPMD come out of pretty much nowhere with this Marth. I'm pretty sure he's been labbing it for a while, and he's running circles around Mutaking. I don't think he's successful the first time. I don't quite remember. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But like when you watch him play the second time, those sets were like monstrously in PPMD's favor. Like he knew the decision trees better, and he outspaced and made Mutaking look kind of silly. And to keep in mind, I'm not undermining Mutaking. Mutaking is by far better than everybody else in the Ditto. But just to really emphasize just how freaking good PPMD was at this matchup, beating Mutaking on a stage that like we thought was an invincible counterpick for him. We see him, when you watch him play other Marths like Pew Pew, the Marth Dittos don't look really close at all. It just seems like PPMD just knows the right spacing. He knows how to get the right spots. He makes the right reads. And it's just amazing to really just watch that all unfold. And the most important thing, when we look at his legacy, we look at what he's done, and what makes him so exciting is just all those times we really thought, PPMD's been gone for months, like how can he possibly win? He's not a contender. It comes out of nowhere repeatedly. But before I say that, I think the peak of his play was not Apex 2015, but actually Apex 2014. Granted, Mango was in a little bit of hiatus with his kid. Armada was on kind of pseudo-retirement. But you looked at how well PPMD played, four-stocking Mutaking, on FD, cleanly beating Mango, taking Apex 2014 near effortlessly and dominating other people. I think that was his peak, where like we just thought like if he keeps playing this, like he's by far better than Mango. Armada's retired, like he's gonna go on a nice run, and no one's gonna be able to stop this guy. Of course, we read, we figure out like, hey, like he has, a mix of depression issues and a mix of fatigue issues that are still going on to this day. But he took like a 5-month break, didn't play, hasn't been in practice, comes back as Guitar 3 and wins, which is incredible. This is something that we never saw, and it looked pretty easy for him. Although he had some minor close calls, he wins that without practicing. And to kind of compete in this era without practicing for that long, even last year, was incredibly impressive considering how much everybody else played. And granted, that did kind of cost him EVO and MLG that summer. We go forward another 6 months to Apex 2015, where we honestly just didn't think that PPMD could win. There were talks like, well, PPMD did it once before. Like, what's to say he can do it again? You look at how strong Armada looked, how strong Leffen looked, Mango getting back to speed. We just didn't think PPMD could do it, and he scraped it together and actually won. And that was like the most impressive thing about him, was him able to endure and to figure out and to like play to like theory craft to the point where like he can still compete with the world's best without really practicing with other top players. And that's something that really goes underrated in terms of where PPMD is at. And aside from the gameplay of what I've mentioned, probably has one of the best dash dancing games ever. Armada mentioned how frustrating it is to take stage from PPMD at Battle of the Five Gods. You really watch how dominant PPMD was in the Marth versus Peach matchup, especially on the smaller stages. He didn't let Armada throw a turnip without taking heavy damage, and didn't let anything really go. And the stages that Armada mostly won in the Peach Marth were those really large stages like Dreamland and that one stage time on Battlefield. And so it's just a really nice framework, and we kind of wonder, well, like, maybe it's just a matchup thing. Maybe PPMD, like, is taking advantage of Marth Peach, and which, to some extent, Marth Peach is a winning matchup for PPMD, but we don't see other Marths doing that. Mutaking, kind of has some glimmers of doing it, and Mutaking is a really good player, but, like, Armada's still able to beat him. You see Armada dominate the other Marths, where it's not even close. And so a lot of times we just assume things about PPMD, but like the level of play that he has, especially at his peak, is what gets people really excited. It's what gets people hopeful. That we can say, like, one day he's going to come back and we're going to really see him at his peak again. It's the reason why, like, the amount of difficulty and stress that he's given to other top players, the other gods at his peak, makes also them believe that, like, yeah, like PPMD wasn't at his best, and I'm sure like he'll come back and that he will be an incredibly strong player and he'll be able to compete to win. Some other reasons why people like PPMD: this guy is been a fountain of knowledge, especially if you read his Smashboards account. If you ever get a chance, he just spews out knowledge in a way that makes sense. It's very easy to follow. It's a lot like his gameplay. When you watch his gameplay, everything is very deliberate, everything is very intentional, and you watch it, it's like 5 out of 5 decisions, one after another, and you don't really get confused watching it because it's so fundamental. And I'm not saying that he doesn't make reads. He makes a lot of reads in his gameplay. He adapts a lot. He does take a lot of risks too, and that's something that goes underrated, but he makes smart risks. And he's posted essays of posts. I'm not even sure what his Smashboards account is. Answers every question, really lengthy, really detailed. And that's why people love him. People love him. He's a great gentleman, a great player. His neutral at his peak is what I view to be Mutiking's. If we're to say, like, do the comparisons, PPMD's neutral game is like Armada and Mutiking's Punish game in terms of like how beautiful it is to watch. So if you ever get the chance, watch his sets against Mutiking and Mango at Apex 2014, where he just goes to town. Watch his Apex 2015 sets. Watch like how good he was. And overall, I just really hope the best for PPMD. Up ahead, I really do hope that he recovers. He's a great guy, and I really hope that he can continue to do what he wants. And so, this is my little thing of encouragement and something a little bit positive amidst a bunch of other stuff that's just been going on right now.